Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
He's at war with woke.
Joe Concha
thinks liberals are a joke.
Joe Concha.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
You can make the argument that Ronald Reagan was the greatest president of the 20th century. Yeah, I think we can make that argument. Kennedy, obviously, that got cut short after only 3 years in office. He was doing a good job up until that point. Certainly, he was at 70% approval before he was murdered in Dallas. I can't go down the FDR road. Just no. The war got us out of the Great Depression. Not all of those measures that he took. Oh, boy. Anyway, so Reagan obviously ended the Soviet Union without firing a shot. Obviously, was a guy who presided over an incredible economy. The 80s was awesome on like every level, and people were proud to be Americans. So I could go through the whole Reagan resume, but he once had a great saying the 9 worst words you could ever hear is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Well, Zohar Mamdani has a big problem with that because he's, a communist. And here he is in Cut 23 mocking Reagan, which, again, you want to go there, man? Fine, we're going to have some fun with this one. Cut number 23, go.
I cannot help but think of the words of our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. He famously said, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help." It's a good quote, but I disagree. I think 9 more terrifying words are actually, "I worked all day and can't feed my family."
I work all day and I can't feed my family? Oh, how are you going to solve that little problem there, Zoran? Going to open up some government-run stores? A whole 5 of them when there are already thousands in the city? What's that going to do? And when they fail, and they will, because we have this thing called precedent, these things haven't worked in the past, then what's the next step? Oh, right. I guess what Zoran is saying here, and I can think of 9 words that are far more terrifying. I'm a democratic socialist and I'm here to help. Yeah, that's probably more terrifying. But then he also is planning on raising your property taxes. So you could be the guy who works all day and still not be able to feed your family. You can only feed them less because he'll be raising taxes. And he just got a big bailout from, obviously, Kathy Hochul and Upstate. And he's running around bragging how he's now fixed the budget deficit. No, you were handed an allowance, right? You're bailed out. And the bailouts eventually will end. But I just can't believe this guy went there with the Reagan quote. So go figure. Anyway, so there's this guy, Jonathan Lemaire. He is one of the co-hosts of Morning Joe on MS Now. He's also a writer for The Atlantic, which is trash. And he has a story up now called "A Different Kind of Fading President. Joe Biden became quieter, while Donald Trump grows even louder." And he makes the argument that Trump and Biden are being treated differently because Biden's age and obviously his mental decline was well documented. At least it was after the debate. A lot of people were denying it beforehand, including the writer of this piece, Jonathan Lemaire. And just goes down the line saying that, I'll read one little excerpt from it. Let's put it this way. Let's see. Trump is a big presence in any room as opposed to Biden, who grew visibly thinner as he got older, adding to the appearance of frailty. Trump is also loud, all in caps. Biden's voice was frequently reduced to a gentle whisper. Oh, enough. All right. You know where this is going. So I decided to go back and see, did Jonathan Lemaire try to defend Biden when everybody, starting with me, because I wrote the first book on Biden, New York Times bestseller, thank you, called Come On, Man, the truth about Biden's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad presidency. And in 2022, I was documenting that obviously Joe Biden just simply did not have the elevator going to the penthouse anymore, that he was already gone during the 2020 campaign, hence why he had campaigned from his basement. And if you go back and look at some of those interviews that Biden did, it looks like he's reading a teleprompter. It looks like probably he got the questions in advance and then the answers were written for him in a lot of cases. And there was even like one report that shows literally you could see the reflection of a teleprompter when he was speaking at one point. And they, of course, the campaign denied it. Now we know that it absolutely probably was true. Anyway, here's Jonathan Lemaire, again, lamenting that Trump's age isn't getting enough attention. Here's what he thought about Joe Biden in June of 2024, just 3 days before that disastrous debate in Atlanta. Cut number 20, go.
Yeah, one wonders if there are orders coming from on high about tilting the media coverage here from these outlets. I mean, the New York Post, let's just take that as an example. They knew better. It had been a full day earlier in the aftermath of that moment in Normandy. It was completely debunked. There's videos from other angles, not just put out by the Biden campaign, but put out by independent observers saying, no, President Biden was not meandering off. He was going to salute one of the other parachutists. And there again, he came back to take it for hours. That was a done story, and the New York Post put it on the front page anyway the following morning and tried to turn it into something it was not. Yesterday, we had White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre call out these cheap fakes, and in particular, the one Twitter account associated with the RNC, the National Republican National Committee, which puts out a lot of these misleading videos, and then it's amplified by others on the right. And the RNC researchers account simply said, nope, we're going to keep doing it. Just flat out said, we don't care. And that's the problem here that the Biden campaign, but also those of us in the media are going to have to grapple with between now and November, because the speed of these fakes only is increasing.
Fake. Remember that? Cheap fakes? Oh, boy. The White House put that term out there. And this moron, hook, line, and sinker. First of all, he was talking about Normandy during the G7, where Biden absolutely wanders off when he was supposed to be taking a picture with other world leaders. Italy's prime minister, president, had to go over and get him back, right? And then obviously there was that fundraiser hosted by Jimmy Kimmel in Hollywood where Biden didn't even know how to get off the stage. Obama had to lead him off. And that's where George Clooney later admitted, after the debate, of course, that Biden didn't even recognize him, right? And of course, Kimmel kept his mouth shut because he's a hack. So, yeah, again, Jonathan Lemaire is now saying, oh, wow, Trump, he's really starting to fade, and we really should be concerned about his mental abilities. Do take 2 seats because you were the guy pushing the whole cheap fakes thing. And then obviously that debate happened a couple days later, and then Jonathan Lemaire is saying, maybe Biden should drop out. Yeah, you think? Oh, meanwhile, on the same show that day, here is Joe Scarborough, again, Jonathan Lemaire's co-host, and this is the way that he defended Biden in one of the most iconic for all the wrong reasons sound bites you will ever hear in retrospect. Cut number 21, go.
Yeah, start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth.
Ooh.
And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it. And you...
F you if you can't handle the truth. He went full Colonel Nathan Jessup there, Joe Scarborough did. Never apologized for that. He never say, no, I got that wrong. And apparently, he spoke to Biden on a regular basis. So it's not like from afar he just missed the story. He knew. And again, it was all about getting Biden over the finish line. And if not for that debate, remember, it was, 2 years ago last week that Biden challenged Trump to a debate. And he put out this video where there's like 18 jump cuts in like a 15-second clip. And the best part about that was, I always use the Rocky IV analogy for this. When Biden challenged Trump to the debates, it was all on Biden's terms. He chose the network. He chose where it was going to be held. He demanded there would not be a studio audience. He demanded that the mics be cut off if somebody tried to interrupt. And Trump was presented this and immediately said, sure, whatever you want. It's okay. But, sir, it's going to be on CNN, and Jake Tapper is going to be moderating it with Dana Bash, who hate you. I don't care. Oh, sir, wouldn't you be better with the studio audience? You feed off that energy? Nah, I really don't care. And it's just like Rocky IV, where, remember, Ivan Drago literally kills Apollo Creed in the ring, which I thought was unnecessary. You could put him in a coma or something like that at the end of the movie, like he comes out of it. You don't kill Apollo. But anyway, so Apollo dies, and then obviously Rocky has to avenge him. So then the Soviets say, okay, you can have this fight, but we're not going to pay you anything. which Rocky agrees to. It's going to be in Moscow. We will have the KGB follow you everywhere you train, and it's going to be on Christmas Day. And Rocky's like, yeah, okay, it sounds good to me. So that's the same thing that Trump did with this Biden acceptance on this debate. And obviously, we know what happens. That was the end of Biden's campaign, the end of his career, and he'll forever be remembered for that horrific 90 minutes. Anyway, you got to hear this before we go to break. And this is the accent has returned. Yes, it has. AOC was down in Selma, Alabama. And she's talking about, again, she's been on this utter tear lately about redistricting and what's going on in places like Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, where she says that this is all an attempt by the Trump administration and a corrupt Supreme Court, I guess, to eliminate all black representation in Congress. And no, you can't draw districts up by race. That's actually the opposite of racism when you think about it. And even in Tennessee, an old white guy is about to be knocked out by a Republican. Actually, he's retiring because he knows he can't win. A Republican woman who happens to be black will be taking over the 1st District of Tennessee. Yeah, so that's a good thing, right? Oh, no, that's right. She's a Republican. That can't be a good thing. Anyway, here's AOC talking about how it's time for the North to pull up the South or something, but the accent is back. Cut 15, go.
To make sure that we all understand that Montgomery is not alone, that you all are not alone. And for all of those watching today, when they ask, what do we do in this moment? I feel helpless. What action can I take? It is time for the North to pull up to the South. It is time for New York to pull up to Alabama.
Alabama. All right, enough, Kev. I can't take it. Oh, my hair hurts. It's fine. To Alabama. She sounds like Forrest Gump. Oh, and again, where does it come from? You're from, well, you say you're from the Bronx. You're from a nice little suburban town near Westchester. That's where you're from. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez could be the 48th president of the United States. And people cheer on that stuff. Again, it's so insulting. And these morons cheer it on. So why don't we just go through various accents here? Here's AOC in cut number 16. The accent has been heard before, unfortunately. Cut 16, go.
70s.
I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy.
Bye.
There is nothing wrong with preparing the food that your neighbors will eat.
Okay, so there's a black accent and there's a southern accent. And I guess there's a southern black accent as well. So AOC has a couple of different ones she could play with, but nothing beats Kamala. That's certainly for sure. And cut number 17, go.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The path may seem hard, the work may seem heavy, but joy cometh in the morning, and church morning is on its way.
Oh, she could be the Democratic nominee. Imagine that. It could come down to AOC versus Kamala versus Gavin. Which then I guess, I don't know, man. Gavin's not good in these situations. He's going to have to criticize a black woman or whatever Kamala has to be, a woman of color, or AOC, a woman of color. I don't know. Boy, Democrats are screwed. What can you say? But before we go to break, now, I promise, Kevin, we're going to go to break after we play cut number 18. Hillary Clinton also, actually, she kind of started this whole thing in cut number 18. Go.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far.
Oh, I love it. I just love it. I'm going to keep those 4 cuts, Kevin, my producer, in perpetuity, and we're just going to play them like every night. They're that good. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is Concha at Night. We're back with more in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition.
Joe Concha.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. He's at war with woke.
Joe Concha
thinks liberals are a joke.
Joe Concha.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
But here's Michael Che on Saturday Night Live making, I guess, a joke. Now, remember, Michael Jackson, there is a movie out about his life, and it won at the box office again for the third straight week, hence why they're talking about Michael here. But this is just, I don't know, SNL ain't what it used to be. This ain't Norm Macdonald, that's certainly for sure, but I just don't get what exactly the humor is here. Cut number 4, go.
The movie Michael won the box office again this weekend, and since a few members of the Jackson family are actually in the audience tonight, I wanted to take a moment to tell everybody what I really think. Michael Jackson did nothing wrong. He was right to molest all those kids.
Oh.
And they were lucky. I would have paid him to do it. And I did. That's right. When I was 10 years old, Michael Jackson molested me. And the only thing it gave me was a fetish for middle-aged white women.
Okay. Molestation jokes. That's great. That's really good stuff. Before we go to break, here's what late night used to be. And of course, I give you Rodney Dangerfield on Johnny Carson. Cut number 3, go.
Oh, ladies, man, I know that, Johnny. I never got girls when I was a kid in show business either, you know? One girl told me, come on over, there's nobody home. I went over, there was nobody home. And this girl was no bargain either, she was fat.
Fat, huh?
Fat when she wears high heels, she strikes oil, okay? Big girl. Oh, I met her at the Macy's parade, she was wearing ropes.
See, that's very, very, very good. Anyway, that's what late night used to be. And Stephen Colbert is going off the air this week. Thank God. I'm writing a column on this, and let's just say I ain't going to hold back. And we'll talk more about this, actually, when we come back. This is Concha at Night. As you know, we have so much more in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
I'm reading these stories like from Brian Stelter of CNN, who calls Colbert's run as late night host iconic. There's nothing iconic about it. He was an activist. He had on, over the last 6 years, one Republican, Liz Cheney, and I don't think she counts because she's anti-Trump. Right, this is a guy who only wanted to talk to people who agreed with him and vice versa. He had on Jake Tapper 16 times as a guest. 16. Tapper's not exactly Mr., he's not Rodney Dangerfield. Let's put it that way. Bernie Sanders was on that stupid show 21 times. Elizabeth Warren, something like 18 times. These are not exciting people that make you laugh or even interesting people that make you think. And Colbert, again, throughout this entire CNN article, Stelter doesn't bother to bring up the fact that Colbert was losing $40 million a year for CBS. He has 200 staffers. 200 staffers. I'll make this point until I'm blue in the face. What do you need 200 staffers for to have two people talk to each other across a desk? A couple of writers for the monologue. Actually has 18 writers. 18. What do you need 18 writers for? And then the joke's always the same. Trump, 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 Trump. Fascist, fascist, Nazi, Nazi. Go on. And we're calling this guy iconic. What, for losing money? For finishing a very distant second to Greg Gutfeld, who has 1/100th the resources that Colbert has? Give me a break. This send-off is just sickening, and I am writing about it for the Washington Examiner. You could read that column on Wednesday. Meanwhile, speaking of the losers, here's President Trump on Bill Cassidy's. Now, this is an amazing loss. Senators don't get primaried and lose. It just doesn't happen. Most incumbents win. They certainly get through the primary. But Cassidy obviously voted to convict Donald Trump in impeachment over January 6th. This is a guy who regularly opposed Trump. And Well, Trump said, all right, we're going to primary you and you're going to lose. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So here's Trump in the end zone dance. Cut number 7, go.
We got to get rid of this loser. This guy is bad. He's disloyal to the Republican Party. He's disloyal to the people of Kentucky. And most importantly, he is disloyal to the United States of America. And he's got to be voted out of office as soon as possible.
Sorry about that. See, we admit mistakes on here. And I would thought that Trump was talking about Cassidy in that clip. That's actually obviously about Thomas Massie of Kentucky. Massie, currently a couple polls have come out where he is trailing the Trump-backed primary candidate, Bill Gulrain, I believe his name is, a former Navy SEAL, former Army Ranger, good old Kentucky guy. And Massie, Trump's exactly right on. And I actually had this was my last column, actually, for the Washington Examiner, where I said that his useless tenure in Congress is about to come to an end, because it is useless. I mean, the one thing, this is where I knew that Massie was an absolute phony, that when funding came up for the Iron Dome in Israel, which basically keeps that country from being destroyed, because you got Hezbollah, and Hamas, Iran, Houthis, all launching missiles day and night at Israel. And this is the only thing that helps protect that country in shooting down these missiles 90-something% of the time. And Massie voted against funding that. Screw you. And you know what? That vote still passed 420-9. Massie being the only Republican to vote against it, along with, AOC, the squad, all didn't want to fund it. All right, just let him die, I guess, huh? And I'm like, all right, this is not somebody who's looking at the best interests of the country. This is a guy who's looking to fundraise by being the resistance to Trump, right? He also voted against the big, beautiful bill, Thomas Massie did. And if that thing failed, your tax returns would look nothing like they do this year. And the Trump tax cuts would have expired, and you'd be paying thousands more in taxes as a result. And oh, by the way, Democrats would get a huge victory. And Massie voted against that, too. And I could go down the line all the times he's voted with AOC, and it's like, all right, this guy claims to be a conservative. He's anything but. And again, it's all about attention-seeking and fundraising, which he talks about seemingly in every tweet. How much money he raised today. Good for you. Great. Congratulations. So that primary is tomorrow, and let's hope that Thomas Massie is no more. I know some of you probably are like yelling at me saying, well, he's the only person who really stands up for the Constitution. He never offers solutions. It's easy to say no to everything. I don't mind that if you're doing it on principle, but give me a solution. When you oust Kevin McCarthy as the House Speaker, who do you support to replace him? So we ousted Johnson, along with that cartoon character, Matt Gaetz, and then didn't really offer up anybody. And then it was chaos in the House for many, many weeks until they finally landed on Mike Johnson, who we also tried to oust. Meanwhile, Massie never offers himself up as Speaker. Why is that? Oh, right. He'd actually have to do math in his job. Johnson has the hardest job in the world. I mean, you got a very, very small margin. You got to balance conservatives, moderates, fiscal hawks, people all over the place. And this guy still is getting things done. And Massie would just rather, the old line from The Dark Knight. Some people just want to watch the world burn. And that's Massie. So hopefully he's gone. The polls seem to show that may be the case. Meanwhile, so we've talked about on the show before, Marco Rubio should be the next president of the United States. I said, in the end, if I had a choice, trust me, it's a hard choice. Marco, I think, has a crossover appeal, and he's completely unflappable, whether it be in movies, whether it be in speeches. What did I say? Movies? Whether it be in interviews, whether it be in speeches. And I think J.D. Vance kind of has, I'm not sure he has the crossover appeal to bring in suburban women to the number that he has to, or even some Democrats, especially the moderate ones, that he has to. So in the end, if I had a choice, Marco running for president and being the nominee would be slightly better than J.D. Vance. I think either way, one or the other wins. And if they're a ticket together, Vance and Rubio, that is one powerful ticket, especially when it could be something like, I don't know, Gavin Newsom and AOC, right? Who do you think is going to be favored there, right? Then again, gas prices can't be like $4.50 like they are now, because then you could usher in a socialist into this country if again, that thing's got to get under control. But there's plenty of time to get that thing under control. Anyway, here is Rubio then being asked about, okay, what if you ran against J.D. Vance? Which I've always said, no, they're not going to run against each other. They're too good of friends. They'll work it out beforehand in terms of what the strategy is. And Rubio gives another perfect answer. Cut number 8, go.
Even. What do you think about that? Would you want to be president?
No, look, I know this is going to sound like the typical job. I'm going to be in this job for the next 2.5 years. I'm going to do that job. I'm going to finish the job for this president. I'm enjoying it very much. I think we're going to make a lot of good things happen. JD is a very good friend of mine. If JD runs for president, I think he'd be a phenomenal candidate. I've said publicly, and I'll say it again, I'll be the first person to sign up and support him. I think JD would do great.
Would you want to be a vice president?
I want to be the Secretary of State, and I'll worry about the future in the future. I'm not saying, I'm not telling you that that's what I'm aiming for. I've been doing this for a long time, too. I was in the Senate starting in 2010, so I'd like to do some other things with my life at some point, although public service is an honor to be able to be involved in.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's right. That's the answer you got to give, by the way. Like, sure, I'll be vice president. No, we can't say that. Right, so is it a dodge? Yeah, but I absolutely 100% believe that he would support J.D. Vance if J.D. announces that he's going to be the nominee. And as I've said, Usha's got a 4th child on the way. His kids are very, very young. I have young kids. You don't get those years back. And J.D. Vance is only 41 years old. It's not like he's 71 or 81. So he has a very, very long runway. So maybe he takes some time, does some other things, right? Maybe he could be Secretary of State in Rubio's administration and then run for president down the line and still be 30 years younger than the current president and the president before him in Biden. So just putting that out there. Meanwhile, out in California, they got a little problem where Steve Hilton is at the top or near the top of polls, and Chad Bianco, who's a sheriff there as well, he's within striking distance of second place. And if Hilton and Bianco end up being the top 2 finishers in what's called a jungle primary, then it doesn't matter what party that they're a part of. It comes down to those 2 choices for California voters, either a Republican or a Republican. So Gavin Newsom was asked about this, and basically he says this so brazenly and just doesn't seem to care that he's not going to allow 2 Republicans to run for California governor in the general, and they have like different things they can do to make sure that doesn't happen, which, again, this should be getting far more attention than it is. Cut number 9, go.
We all have agencies. We can shape the future. There's still a lot. Look, I've said this before, so I'll repeat it. I don't anticipate this need to be the case, but there is a break the glass scenario, and there's many people that have a deep understanding of what it would look like if Democrats were locked out, and we're going to do everything to make sure that doesn't happen. I'll leave it at that.
We're going to make sure we do everything to make that happen? Break the glass scenario? These are your rules, dude. And now you're going to what? If it's Bianco and Hilton, you have mechanisms to make sure it doesn't happen? And no one's talking about this? Fox, we are, yes. But the other networks, no, ignoring this completely. If this happened in Florida and Ron DeSantis said something like this in a similar scenario, believe me, there'd be calls for his resignation. Meanwhile, Gavin is, I guess, a new kind of Democrat. But what were Democrats like back in the 90s when we had balanced budgets and surpluses and welfare reform and 2 sides worked with each other without all the name calling and the vitriol and the hatred? Well, this is what they were like in the 90s. Cut number 10, go.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country.
Our immigration policies are shambles, plain and simple. And right now, our borders are amazingly porous to people who shouldn't be here, such as terrorists, drug smugglers, etc.
If you break our laws by entering this country without permission and give birth to a child, we reward that child with U.S. citizenship. And we wonder, in this country, why we have an illegal immigration problem.
Unlawful immigration is not acceptable.
We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. Yep. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
Boom. All right, Kev, we're good. Yeah. Boy, that sounds like Trump, Chuck Schumer, Bill Clinton, calling them illegals. You're not allowed to do that now. They're undocumented now. If you say illegals, then that's a slur. Again, that was the 90s. And that's why the 90s, I said before that Reagan was the greatest president of the 20th century. The 90s wasn't that bad either. Saying, Bill Clinton, Monica. Yeah, I get it. But you take away the personal picadillos, and Clinton was a good president. Sorry, I voted for him. Screw you if you don't like that. I didn't vote for him in 92. That was George H.W. Bush. But 96, I didn't see any reason to vote for Bob Dole when the country seemed to be going quite well in terms of peace, prosperity. And again, he was working with Gingrich on things like shrinking government and actually not spending what we don't have. And that speaks to me. I don't care who you are. Anyway, that Democratic Party is now gone. These ain't your daddy's donkeys anymore. Meanwhile, you got to hear this. This is NPR's Steve Inskeep. Yes, NPR. Tries to play gotcha with Dana White. Dana White obviously runs the UFC and is a supporter of President Trump. And White completely corrects him on a very, very subtle thing that Inskeep keeps out of his description of immigrants. This is cut number 22. Go.
Talking about how your fighters are often immigrants, people from disadvantaged backgrounds, even a refugee in the case of your champion fighter who's going to be at the White House. These are people, not universally, but in large measure, the president wants out of the country.
And that's not necessarily true either. What the president wants is what everybody has talked about, including the Democrats back in the day. You have to get documented the right way. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of people waiting in line to get green cards in this country. You know, the borders have been open for the last 4 years, and lots of criminals came in here, lots of bad people. They got them out first. I don't think the president has ever said he doesn't want.
Yeah. It's not, again, Inskeep says you probably have a lot of fighters who are immigrants, and they're probably worried. They may be immigrants, but they probably came here legally. I don't know if any illegals that are working or fighting in the UFC. And Dana White is exactly right. It's not like Trump has ever said, we don't want immigrants here. He married one, for the love of God. He says you can't come here illegally. It's why we have laws. It's why we have a border. And yeah, some people are coming and they may have come from a place where, all right, they want to do better and they want to pursue the American dream. Fine, then get in line with everybody else. And as Dana pointed out perfectly there, yeah, bad people have come across that border, including terrorists, including many on the FBI terror watch list. And we're just going to allow that? And Inskeep thinks he has a gotcha here? No. Illegal immigration, Steve. You left that little word out. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is Concha at Night. We wrap this puppy up in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition.
Joe Concha.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Also do a show at 11 a.m. called the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning shows. That's 11 a.m. on Sundays. I took over from my friend Janine Pirro, my colleague from Fox, who went on to become the district attorney of Washington, D.C. And here is Judge Janine talking about how, you know what, these gangs that are roaming the city are completely out of control. Where are the parents? And aren't they responsible here as well? Well, she's going to take it even one step further, and I'm 100% behind this. Cut number 14. Go.
Says, I'm going to start punishing the parents. Listen.
These takeovers have terrorized our neighborhoods. They have shut down businesses, and they have wasted hard-earned tax dollars of law-abiding residents who just want to live and work in peace. Starting today, my office will aggressively prosecute parents under D.C.'s curfew law. This statute makes it unlawful for an adult to enable, facilitate, or permit a minor to engage in delinquent acts.
Good.
Penalty
We're good there,
is
Kev.
up to 6 months imprisonment.
Good. Yep, that's the way it's got to go. If you have like a party at your parents' house and somebody crashes their car afterwards, they don't go after the kid. They go after the parents for, even if they're not home. And that's unfortunate, but there's got to be some responsibility here. And I have a feeling that DC is going to get even more safe and more clean as a result of Pirro now warning parents, get these kids under control. If you don't, you're going to jail. Good for her. Anyway, Elon Musk has some words to say about the Democratic Party. Now, remember, Elon, before the 2024 election, voted entirely for Democrats his entire life. And then obviously the party left him. Well, Now he says this is what the party really represents, and it's pretty dark stuff, but it's accurate. Cut number 6, go.
And then you see how much violence there's on the left, with our friend Charlie Cook getting murdered in cold blood this week, and people on the left celebrating it openly. The left is the party of murder and celebrating murder. I mean, let that sink in for a minute.
And he's not wrong, guys.
That's who we're dealing with here.
Yeah, we could get out, Kev. That's the thing. Like, Luigi Mangione is in a New York courtroom, and there are supporters out there cheering him on. The guy shot a father of 2 in the back in Midtown Manhattan because he was a CEO of a healthcare company, and Luigi, who only went to, University of Pennsylvania, only went to a private high school in Maryland, has plenty of money, was mad about the system, so he killed the guy. And Charlie used to debate liberals all the time on campuses and talked about his faith and his freedom, and he was killed for it. And you don't see too many Democrats condemning this sort of stuff. And that's a shame. And even with Trump, 3 assassination attempts. And less than like an hour after it happened, they were blaming Trump for his rhetoric and basically said, you had it coming. You're bringing it on yourself. Give me a break. Anyway, before we go, you got to hear this because it's really just hilarious. This is Scott Jennings speaking at Hillsdale College and roasting his own network. This is quite good, I got to say. Cut number 11, go.
Be here tonight among all of you and to have dinner with Dr. Orrin and this great table here. Can assure you this is better than what I would normally be doing this time of the night, which is taking quite a beating on behalf of our values. If any of you have seen my debates on CNN, I guess I should ask, do we have any CNN viewers here? It's a closed press event. You can admit it. A hand or two. There's one over there. 3 hands. Thank you for tripling our audience. We're very appreciative.
That's great. All right, Kev. And we will end on that note, but we're back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, on the Joe Concha Show, Concha at Night. Until then, I got 2 words for you. Bye. Bye.